I didn't even realize I was muted. Noble Drew Ali through the guidance of his father God, Allah, Islam. Now for the additional laws for Moorish Americans by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Act 1. Grand Sheikh is the governing head of our temple. All business of said temple must be approved by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali before being acted upon by any member. Let it be finance, property, or any line of life that will cause the member to sacrifice finance, that will cause the support of any group of members. Any former officer that violates these laws is subject to be removed from his office under a heavy restriction, etc., by the Prophet or the Grand Sheikh. Act 2. All members are to attend their adept meetings and their public meetings promptly. If a member is found standing around on their meeting period, shall be fined 50 cents on the first case, and on the second will be fined $1, which will go on your emergency fund. If member is working, his monthly dues must be paid, and if he has money in the bank, he must subscribe for as much as he is able to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. Act 3. It is the lawful and divine duty of every good member, if he is able in finance, to aid me in saving the nation. And if he does not, he is an enemy to the cause of uplifting his own people, and justice must catch you. Let it be he or she, according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as I have the power invested in my hands, and I will have to enforce the law in order to save the nation. Act 4. All members, while up making a public speech, must not use any assertion against the American flag or speak radical against the church or any member of any organized group, because we are to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Act 5. All members must promptly attend their meetings and send their children to Sunday school, and the teacher must confirm himself to the questionnaire, and let every member exercise his five senses who is able to do so, because out from your Sunday school comes the guiders of the nation. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and partial of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his father God, Allah. Islam, Islam, Islam. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Islam, Islam, Islam. We are about to get started here. You can't hear me. Okay. Can you hear me now, Brother John? Because I had it on mute and didn't realize it was on mute. My apologies. Islam.
I can hear you. I just can't hear you through my headset. But we'll
Okay, you still
continue.
can. Okay, Islam, Islam.
Yeah.
So tonight we are going to be talking about the Dred Scott decision. And why that's important even now today, what we can learn from the Dred Scott decision today. Yesterday, Brother John, we talked about mental slavery. And I know we always have this bill that you're always informing me about, how we were only really released from one form of slavery, and there were others that we were still attached to. So that's why I wanted you to come on tonight to discuss the Dred Scott decision also, so we could get a better understanding of it. And also, does this relate to, is this how we can better understand Act 6 in our divine constitution and bylaws? So, Brother John, would you like to get started, or how would you want me to read from the document? How would you like to do this?
I can get started by reading from the document, but you made reference to Act 6.
Islam.
And it says we are teaching our people.
Mm-hmm.
And what our people need to know is what occurred between 1779 and 1865,
Islam.
because that's during the time of slavery. Now, in 1865, our people supposed to have been free,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not free until they have been able to free themselves from the European psychology.
Mm-hmm.
When the prophet, when the prophet wrote these letters to these members, he said that the European took the birthrights away from the people whom they forced under bondage. The people he forced on the bondage, well, he was able to do that after the War of 1812. And he said that they were not slaves. So after the War of 1812, and we were able to force our people into bondage, they were not slaves yet. They were not slaves yet. He said they were bound free men. However, subsequent generations who followed them in bondage were made slaves because their minds had been subjugated to a European psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So that European psychology is is prevalent today, and we need to free ourselves from that. Until we free ourselves from that, we are slaves.
Islam.
Even though you're supposed to have been freed in 1865. But prior to 1865, the the question of citizenship had arisen, and it arisen around the around slavery, around owning property. So it had been challenged all the way up to the Supreme Court. Now, prior to that, all the states, you talk about states' rights, and you talk about the right that comes in the Constitution of the United States of America. States have different rights. In fact, it's under state rights that we cast our votes. So the states actually can deny you the right to vote until the federal government steps in and supersedes the state. If they supersede the states, then they have to comply. And that's what occurred in the Civil Rights Act when they gave our brothers and sisters privileges. They gave them privileges. They did not restore our rights that was taken away from us in 1779. Privileges can be taken away at any time. So
Mm-hmm.
the courts have been brought to attention, the courts of our situation, and the courts addressed it all the way up to the highest court and addressed it. They still had not granted us citizenships under the Constitution of the United States of America. And we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know why. The prophet who came and tell us why, and when he tell us, we need to reach down and try to tell our brothers and sisters, we who comprehend that. So he says that that we're not Negroes. You're not black, you're not color, you're not Ethiopian.
Mm-hmm.
In the Dred Scott decision, that was implied that the reason the brother was still a slave is because he was still considered himself property. He has not detach himself and free himself from his slave holder. So he tested these now he ended up going to various states. Some of these states were slave states and some was free states. Because as the European gained control of our land in the beginning of the 13 states, some was considered free and some was considered slaves. But in order to
Mhm.
enhance the power of the each of the two sides, they came upon a compromise as they admitted new states to the Union that one state would be free and one state would be slave.
Mhm. Mhm.
Dred Scott had lived in both free and slave states.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he said that he challenged because he lived in a free state long enough, he should have been free. Now, the issue of Dred Scott was came under the property laws. And property is sold in a state. Your estate determine how I use the word wealth or your property passed from one generation to the next. The person
Mhm.
who owned Dred Scott died.
Mhm.
And it was his, it was a family of the owner that wants to reap the benefit of him being a property, not a citizen. So I'm going to read what I have been able to attain from the up-to-date library, which is Google. It says on March
Mhm.
1857, in the case of Dred Scott versus John Stafford. And you're going to find out that the case, as it took on in different courts, it was Dred
Mhm.
Scott versus others as well. All right. So it said United States Supreme Court Justice Robert B. Taney. He was like Justice Roberts now. He's the Chief Justice of the highest court in the land. He ruled that African American were not and could not be citizens. Now, the language has been modernized to kind of reflect current understanding of current aspects of European psychology. And you'll see that we move farther into this where it says Taney wrote that founders' words in the Declaration of Independence, all men were created equal, was never intended to apply to blacks.
Mhm.
Now, you remember up here it says African Americans, and now it's saying black.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
blacks could not vote, travel, or even fall in love or marry of their own free will. Rights granted according to
Mhm.
the Declaration by God to all, it was the accumulation of 10 years of court battles, Dred Scott fight to live and to be recognized as a free man. That's
Mhm.
sort of like the capture of overall what took place. And we'll go into some of
But
the
that was
specifics.
all right.
But one of the things it's saying that as property, what rights he did not have. And one of them was even to marry.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the High Court decision went even further, declaring laws that restricted slavery in new states are sought to keep a balance between free and slave states, such as the Missouri Compromise, were unconstitutional. In essence, Black Americans, regardless of where they live, were believed to be nothing more than commodities. Now, to
Mhm.
understand what's taking place, you have to understand psychology.
Mhm.
It was a prophet who broke this down to us.
Mhm.
He wrote a letter to some of his believers, and this was after he reincarnated. This is part of his divine teaching. And
Mhm.
as I read, the letter in the Moorish literature, it says the European took the birthrights away from the people whom they forced under bondage. They did that after we were defeated in the War of 1812.
War of
And it
1812.
says here, they were not slaves. They was bound free men. That means you was not Negro, you're not black, you're not colored, you're not Ethiopian. That's the name they gave you that disconnected you. Let me go further where he said the reason they did that. He said that the subsequent generation who followed them in bondage were slaves because their minds have been subjugated to a European psychology. And the psychologists bred all of the Dred Scott decision. They were separated from the lesser history of their forefathers who were the founders of civilization. It's a blessing for a believer to receive a few lines from I, the prophet. So this is 1857. This is Allah having the angels to break the changes of the seal on our people and live to take to talk about it. So the seal was being broken in 1865. Slavery ended. Now it says that here, it says that because so the prophet tells you the psychology that keeps you in this state that you're in now. The psychology that you are Negro. If you accept that, you accept the slave status.
Islam.
Especially
Brother
after the prophets
Johnson.
told you that you descendants of ancient Moabites who inhabit the northwest and southwestern shores of Africa.
Yes,
So the
Brother John, I
prophet
want to
is
say something before you continue because when you were just talking about and not to cut your wisdom, but when you were just talking about property laws, and I just wanted to kind of give the people an example of what you're saying, like that you can look these things up and see, like to just where you can definitely have the receipt on this. It says property laws govern the ownership, use, and transfer of property. They are designed to protect the rights of property owners and ensure orderly transactions and disputes. The brief overview: there's real property, which includes land and anything attached to it, such as building or trees; personal property, movable items such as furniture, cars, and jewelry; intellectual property, protects creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary works, and trademarks. So when you were just talking about that they took over the minds, see how they could take over your mind there, and that's under property laws. So I just wanted to make a point of that.
praise
That's
Allah
my
that you point that out, and the psychology encompasses a lot, and that's part of as the prophet says that what our minds had been subjugated to a European psychology. And what that does is separate you from the lesser history of your forefathers,
that's fine.
who were the founders of civilization. So when when I was told about the Moorish National Violence movement, I never heard anything about the Moorish National Violence movement, but I had studied history, what the European has said about our journey up until this point in time. I even read about some of the currents in Africa, which was present, past. Uh, the 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 present when I was reading it was that the Africans was trying to free themselves from colonialism. I read about Kwame Nkrumah, who was the first leader of a sub-African country that would ask and receive his independence from the British, which he began to implement nationalism. Now, I read about him, but I not heard about the prophet. However, I also was in Europe which I knew very little about. But there's things I saw in Europe that caused me to question about what role my forefathers played in their development. And I came across a picture, what is called the, someone referred to the study of a magi. Jesus was a magi.
Yes, Lord.
One is called Teta de Negro. It's called the head. In so many words, your crown being removed from your head,
Mm-hmm.
which it would seem like it was important to do that with Jesus and make fun when they took his crown and gave him a crown of thorns. That's not his real crown.
Islam. Islam.
The prophet came
Islam.
to
Yes.
now that crown was removed from our people after we was defeated in War of 1812. In the war of 1812, defeated the head of the Moroccan Empire. not the entire empire.
Islam.
There's
So,
certain
Brother
kingdoms.
John, the war.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The War of
Go ask your question.
1812. Was this the War of 1812? This was the war, the conflict fought between the United States and Great Britain. Is that the one? From June 18,
Well,
1812 to February.
it was between two entities that you associate with land. All
Okay,
right.
all right.
All right. But the psychology did not associate us with the land, associate the British with the land.
Yes, all right. It does say this because it says, all right, I'll read a little bit for you. It says trade restrictions. Britain's enforcement of trade restrictions against the United States during its war with France angered American merchants. Then it says impressment. The Royal Navy's practice of impressing American soldiers into British service was a major point of contention. And then three was territorial expansion. The United States sought to expand its territory, particularly into areas controlled by Native American tribes allied with the British. Is this the same one? That's the same one.
Well, now, what the prophet says is that our brothers helped the Europeans to defeat us. Remember, the European was from Europe. He didn't know this land like our brothers knew this land. So it was our brothers showed him how to navigate through this land advantageous to win certain battles.
All right.
Like scouts. You know what a scout is? Well, an example of that would be Tonto and the Long Ranger.
And the Long Ranger, yes. Mm.
Now, the European is not going to give you a weapon to defeat him.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tonto was not given access to silver bullet. Long Ranger did.
Mm-hmm.
So the weaponry they was fighting, the reserved weaponry was reserved for the European to give him superiority.
Mm.
He used Tonto to help show him wherein there was opportunity for him to beat us. Even Tonto could have had a desire to get to know European better in order to maybe fight and at some point against European and win. But in case he had ideas of that, European never gave him access to a superior weapon, which was the silver bullet.
Mm.
And that is when we are doing business with him, and we'll partner with him, he will always hold back. And retain superior things that going to benefit him. However, the prophet has given us superior knowledge and science that is superior to European,
Islam.
which Jesus demonstrated during the time of Jesus when the Silent Brotherhood came in contact with the best soldiers European hired to protect the Roman seal.
Mm-hmm.
The best soldiers at the time, they were our soldiers, Jewish soldiers. They was like the Green Beret. They was like
Mm.
the Navy SEAL. They were
Mm-hmm.
like the Rangers. They was the best of the best.
Mm.
But they were no match for the Silent Brotherhood.
Islam.
Now, the prophet is preparing us where we can be members of the Silent Brotherhood. But he got to get us away from the European psychology in order to free us. so, so going back to the Dred Scott decision, it tells, it brings light on what the prophet is saying in Acts 6 here.
Mm-hmm.
He says that, know that you're not Negroes. You fall in a certain category that European wants you in, that he will relegate you to property. Negro is property.
Mm-hmm.
Color folks are property. Black people are property. European are property. But the prophet is coming to give you, to reconnect to your ancient fathers and mothers, which is the descendants of ancient Moabites, with the Moors of men, fearless, care for their loved ones, and will follow their leaders to a destiny not unknown or not uncertain.
Mm.
So Dred Scott's decision was to prevent you from being a citizen of the United States of America. Who makes you a citizen is Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Do you have a nationality card, sister?
Islam, I do.
What do your nationality card say?
Let me get it. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna tell you what it says. I do have a nationality card. It says Islam, Unity, Allah, Sister Latonia LSJ Bay. This is your nationality and identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America and birthrights for the Moorish American, etc. We honor all the divine prophets, Jesus, Mohammed, Buddha, and Confucius. May the blessings of God, our Father Allah, be upon you. Oh, my card is it's like wearing away. Be upon you.
That
Tell
carry
me,
this card.
excuse me.
That carry this card.
Carry this card. That's what it says. Carry this card. I do hereby declare that you are a Muslim under the divine laws of the. Oh, that one's gone too, Brother John. Of Morocco. Of hmm. I can't see my mine is gone. Like the ink is completely gone right there. Can you help me out there? Divine laws of something Moorish nation.
Wait a minute. It does not say I'm a citizen of USA.
Oh yes, it does. Yes, it does. It says it at the bottom. Let me get this other one because that one, all the ink is, and it even has a. I have it covered with the plastic over it, but yeah, it has. Okay, I can see this one better. Islam. I mean, all right, I can see this one better. Yes, it does say I am a citizen of the USA. Noble Prophet, Noble Drew Ali the Prophet. Home office, Chicago, Illinois. You want me to read it again? That what's on the card?
You can.
Okay. Islam Unity Allah, Sister L.J. Bay. This is your nationality and identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America and birthrights for the Moorish Americans, etc. We honor all the divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. May the blessings of the God of our Father Allah be upon you that carry this card. I do hereby declare that you are a Muslim under the divine laws of the Holy Quran of Mecca. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I am a citizen of the USA. Noble Drew Ali, the Prophet. Home
So,
office, Chicago, Illinois.
yeah. So when I read about Dred Scott here, they never said that he was descendants of ancient Moabite. They made reference to black. They made reference to African American. So all of this, none of this connects you to your ancient forefathers, to connect you to this land, to make you a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
So this card makes you the only true citizen of this land. The only true citizen. All others are immigrants.
Wow. Islam. Did y'all hear that? Say that again, Brother John. I don't know if they heard you say that.
I said the Moorish Americans are the only true citizens of this land.
Wow.
So now the prophet has chartered to issue to every state in the United States, etc. The Holy Quran, I think it's chapter 40, is it 45?
Chapter 45. Okay. All right. Chapter 45. Would you like me to read it, Brother John?
Well, let's make sure that's the one. Yeah, you can read it.
All right, Islam. The Divine Instructions from the Holy Prophet, chapter 45. The Divine Origin of the Asiatic Nation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for the teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations, the Moorish, who were the ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca, the Egyptians, who were the Hammatites and of a direct descendant of Mizraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese, the Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan, the Asiatic nations and countries of North, South, and Central America, the Moorish Americans and Mexicans of North America, Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America, Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador in Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims. The Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed of Mecca, beginning from Muhammad I, the founder of the uniting of Islam by the command of the great universal God Allah. Islam.
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 So
Islam.
who you don't see here is a European.
Islam.
All of these nations can be given a nationality card to remain in this land here.
Islam.
So the European is a He's a stranger who was welcome here in 1492. And he came here with his flags. Before then, his flags of the cross were not on this land. And he tried to establish it. Christianity is what is the psychology is teaching under this flag, the European flag. Now, let's go back to this here because our people have gone through all the courts in the land, went to the highest court, and the court said that they're not citizens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It speaks
So
about this.
now, to gain that, have the opportunity to do that, they fought and they defeated our brothers. But Prophet Noble Drew Ali led an army, didn't have to fire one shot
Islam.
to come and make you a citizen again. But he has to get that European psychology out of your mind that made you a dead person before he can be a benefit to you. So,
Islam.
so uh, this Dred Scott decision has gone through all these states. As we read about this here, you find out that Dred Scott had taken his case to courts in various states, and eventually he took it to the United States. The person at the High Chief Justice at the time was called Taney. So it says here, the High Court decision went even farther, declaring laws that restricted slavery in the new states or sought to keep a balance between free and slave states, such as the Missouri Compromise, were unconstitutional. In essence, Black Americans, regardless of where they live, were believed to be nothing more than commodities, property. So what it says is that the good Europeans want to do the right thing, but they're using the process of compromise.
Hmm.
But when they sought the compromise, it's going to college, it's going on right now in the Congress of the United States of America. So when they came to compromise, this guy Taney in his court said that it was unconstitutional. That compromise they reached was not constitutional. So the prophet on the love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, he's bringing about a just government.
Hmm.
In order to read the ruling just government, he teaching us how to be just. He's teaching us how to do that. You got to be in your higher self.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the prophet tells us what we need to study
Yourself.
yourselves. And what you find out about yourself, you got a higher self and a lower self.
Islam.
So this government, which supposed to be the this nation, is a nation that all other nations uh, look up to because of the promises it makes. It
Mm-hmm.
makes promises that you will be experienced experience like heaven, what you envision heaven to be. You envision heaven as a place that everybody's doing right.
Mm-hmm.
So you want that to occur on earth here. So you pray for that, and Allah is brought a government put in place that if we do according to obey His and live His law, that's exactly what you have. But European psychology makes it very difficult for that to occur, and that is one of the holdback that's holding us back. The reason we have a problem obeying the prophet's laws, his acts. So I spoke about these tools that Jesus told that we can use
Mm-hmm.
to free ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to understand that citizenship, you won't get it only one way, and that's doing what the prophets say do. So that psychology tells you that you're something you're not. Says you're a Negro, says you're a slave. You need to free yourself from that. So let's go on more about this uh, Dred Scott decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because after this was like before 1865.
Mm-hmm.
1865, Allah says enough. This thing called slavery is enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to end. He gonna bring an end to it. And he he had brother Abraham Lincoln to do that.
Islam. Let's talk about it. Islam.
So so the prophet has brought to us what we need, how we become citizens. This is the only way you become citizen in this government here. You're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna get it through the said government uh uh through said government. You're not gonna get it. What they do will come close to it, even a compromise later on, they said it's unconstitutional. So
Mm.
so there was granted privileges given to our people during what we call the civil rights era. And then the process is taking that away now. And the prophet said granted privilege can be taken away. The prophet's given us divine rights that cannot be taken away.
Islam.
So even though this occurred in the highest court in the land, it's not the highest court in the world. There's a court higher than the Supreme Court of the United States of America. You know that, right?
Yes.
All right. That's called that's the World Court, and it's in the Hague. It's part of the United Nations. And be honest with you, the problem of the conflict in Palestine should have been taken to
Well,
the World Court. It just recently signed a petition to take it to the World Court, but they are fighting it because their struggle and ours is the same. So if they go there and have success, then some of the Asiatics might wake up and wait a minute, maybe we try to take our case to the World Court. But in order to
mm,
do that, you got to be part of a nation. You
yes.
can't do it unless you're part of a nation. It says in the liberation of nations, when the nations get together and deliberate, no consideration given to those who not of a nation.
Hmm. All right. Islam.
All right. So
Mm.
the main thing about Dred Scott is they telling you that you're property and you're limited in your rights as property. So the Dred Scott owner was dead. He had gone to the
Mm-hmm.
spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
And it was heirs that took up the case. Now let me read more about that. It's in here uh somewhere. I'm not sure I'll be able to get to it today, but let's read on
All right. Which one? All right. Since the country so it's like it's not what the meaning of
the
constitution
Taney
has said.
court was dominated by pro-slavery judges from the South. Of the 9, 7 judges had been appointed by pro-slavery presidents. You see what occurred by the justice that was appointed by Donald Trump, right? This is very similar. Do I need to
Tell me what's
do I
that?
need to read that again? Do y'all see what I'm saying?
No, where is it at, Brother John? I want to see where it's at. What
The
page? Is
Taney
it on
court.
the one you sent?
Well, I'm reading on the
Tanny
actual part
Court.
one. I probably need to send you that one. The one I sent you may not have been. It might have been 4.
Oh, all
Let
right.
me. Just give
Oh,
me
it
a
is.
minute here.
Yeah. You said Tanny Court? That other one. Okay. Mom, I know. Islam, Sister Michelle, right? It's a lot to unpack. It's not just something that can just, and then he dropped out. We're going to have to wait for him to come back. Yeah, this is a lot to unpack. So we know that this is going to be more than just one sit down discussion meeting. It definitely is going to may have to be a series, because this is like this is 60 pages by itself, and it's a lot packed in there. It's a lot packed in there. This is part one. Okay, let me get this one. I'm gonna have to get this and put it in my. I gotta get it and put it in my. Let's see, Brother John, you coming back? Okay, let me see. I got to. Let me put this in my email. Gotta put it in a Gmail. Put it in a Gmail. Or, yeah, Gmail. We'll put this in his Gmail, waiting for him to come back up. I know this is really getting good. And it's always going to be that you're going to always have some technical difficulty. Where you at, Brother John? Come on back. Come on back, Brother John. Where you go? Where you go? We're going to always have some form of technical difficulty, but it's okay because everything's done in divine time. The Drew Ali experience. All right. So now I can pull it back to when he comes back up and we can get to that part of it. Let's see. Let me just at least be reading it until he comes back on. We'll get it read until he comes back up. It says, when he was talking about that court, the High Court decision went further, declaring that laws that restricted slavery in new states or sought to keep a balance between free and slave states, such as the Missouri Compromise, were unconstitutional. In essence, Black Americans, regardless of where they lived, were believed to be nothing more than commodities. The Taney Court was dominated by pro-slavery judges from the South. Of the 9, 7 judges had been appointed by pro-slavery presidents. 5, in fact, came from slave-holding families. The decision was viewed by many as victory for the Southern slaveocracy and a symbol of the power the South had over the highest court. Wait for him to come back, but I'm going to keep reading until he comes back. The dramatic ripple effect of Dred Scott, a ruling historians widely agree was one of the worst racially based decisions ever handed down by the United States Supreme Court, reached across the states and territories. It sent shivers through the North and the free African American community. We needed an intermission to digest the truth. Islam, Islam, you're so right. Technically, no Black was free of re-enslavement. No Black was free of re-enslavement. And when he talks about the World Court, I'm just going to say, because I'm waiting for him to come back, the World Court, the International Court. So remember, he took it to the Supreme Court. So it should have went to the World Court, which is an international court of justice, also known as the World Court. Is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It says that this one was established in 1945 by the Charter of the United Nations and began its work in 1946. Here are some key points about it. It has a seat, The Hague, Netherlands. Judges. The court consists of 15 judges elected by the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council for 9-year terms. The languages. The official working languages are English and French. The function, settling legal disputes. Settles legal disputes submitted to it by states in accordance with international law. The advisory opinions. The court gives advisory opinions on legal questions referred to it by authorized UN organs and specialized agencies. Let me finish reading about this until he comes back. Until he comes back. Because Sister Michelle said we needed an intermission so we could digest the truth. Islam. Islam. The dramatic ripple effect of Dred Scott, a ruling historian widely agreed, was one of the worst racially based decisions ever handed down by the United States Supreme Court. Reached across the states and territories, it sent shivers through the North and the free African American community. Technically, no black was free of re-enslavement. You hear all the words that are being said. They're using black, African American, all of that. Islam, Brother John. I was just reading where you had left off.
Oh, all right.
You can continue if you want. I found it.
What was that now?
I said I found it. You can continue if you would like, and I'm gonna try to pull it up on the share screen.
Well, I lost you, so I'm not sure. Did you hear this part here when I said that free blacks, many of whom had been in northern states for years, once again lived in fear of being hunted down and taken back to the South in servitude?
Mm.
Southern states' laws allowed marshals to travel north in search of escaped slaves. The ruling was such a concern to free blacks that many seriously considered leaving the United States for Canada or Liberia. So I read that part. Did you hear me read that and make a comment
No, we
about
did.
that?
We didn't hear that. You dropped after you were talking about the Tanny Court, but I did get to that part. I actually was just about to read that same paragraph. So yes, you're right on time. But we didn't hear you read that.
So when we hear "Let's make America great again," they're talking about this period, and we don't even know what they're talking about. This when they consider uh, American great, when they can roll back your free status back to slave again, retain their property. This was great. Like I said, it was great because they had a majority of the judges that want this to occur.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna read about the Tanny Code again. We got Robert's codes now.
We're at Robert's Courts.
In this present day, we got what they call a Robert's Code. You know that, right? He's Chief Justice.
That sounds familiar. Robert's Court. All right, Islam.
Yeah, the Chief Justice's name is Roberts. Is it John Roberts? The Chief Justice of the United States of America.
The
The Supreme
Roberts
Court.
Court referred to the period since 2005 during which the Supreme Court of the United States has been led by Chief Justice John Roberts. Here are
Right.
some.
So this is the Roberts Code.
The Roberts Court. You're right. Appointed by President George W. Bush.
Yeah.
Roberts succeeded William Rehnquist as Chief Justice after his death. Yep, it sure is the Roberts Court. You're right, brother. Let's go, Brother John. Islam.
All right. So the Tanny Court was the one that was doing the Dred Scott decision. The Tanny Court. And what it said about the Tanny Court looked very much like the Roberts Court. It said the Tanny Court was dominated by pro-slavery judges from the South. Of the 9, 7 judges had been appointed by pro-slavery presidents. 5, in fact, came from slave-holding families. The decision was viewed by many as a victory for the Southern slavocratic, a symbol of the power of the South had over the highest court. And this is when they talk about when America great. They're trying to bring that back. And our people, because European psychology, we can't even see it. We got our brothers who should be recognized we the poor, and they don't recognize we the poor, and they letting the weeds get stronger, choking out choicest flowers.
Choicest flowers. Islam, Brother John. Choking out the choicest flowers. Islam.
So your vote was the opportunity to pull a weed. If you had pulled the right weeds, you are a different government than you have now that's going to be taking place January the 20th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, so the only way that you can come from under this situation you're in now is by following the prophet.
Mm-hmm.
The prophet letting you know that as long as you answer to these marks that they put upon you, Negro, black, color, Ethiopia, you'll be forever a slave and will never be free. But it's a choice because Allah, the prayers in God, He's answered our prayer that brought us a solution to come out of this situation we're in.
Mm-hmm.
But He's not going to make you live this truth. He can. He said He going to raise up a nation that obey Him if you have to raise them out of rocks. In other words, He can raise a whole other nation to do exactly what He wants if He wanted to. But Allah wants you to be free. How He intended to be in the beginning. Free will. Gave us free will.
Islam.
So I'm gonna go a little further on this because you remember I said that the effect was such on our people that some of our people considered leaving this country altogether,
Mm-hmm. Which they're
going to
doing now.
Canada, Liberia. Now
Mm-hmm.
Liberia, what occurred is when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. During the
Mm-hmm.
time Abraham Lincoln was in power, remember now, these pro-slavery people in government were still there.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Even Abraham Lincoln, vice president, one of them, he sympathized with these people. After we study the Dred Scott decision, we're gonna study what occurred after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, which was the Reconstruction period.
Islam.
And and this is to try to teach our people the present state that the solution come out of the state, the prophet brought it to them. And that this is their solution. So we're teaching, we explain to our people, hoping they get it.
Mm-hmm.
It said Acts 6 says, and we're teaching our people.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't know anything about Dred Scott. A lot
Right.
of them know a lot about what took place in the period when the Europeans said, well, he's trying to go back to when it was great. A lot of us don't register what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about a period. So when you understand this high court, you understand what's taking place when there are crimes committed in broad daylight against you and they're doing nothing about it. You're hanging from trees. Evidence of murdering you. And it's done, it's done in broad, well, I shouldn't say in daylight. Uh, it's at night, but they burn that cross so bright you might think you can't hide nothing. It's clear.
Yes. Islam.
All they do is they got sheets over their head. But believe me, on them sheets, they're all Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
On them sheets are all, they just don't want you to identify what European it is. But your government know who they are. They're part and parts of the government. The government know who they are.
Islam. So, Brother John, let me ask you a question. When you were when in reading the beginning of this, and you were stating, you were like, look at how they're using different words. Like they said, the free. Did they say the free African American community? And then when it went back to black, it denounced it like as if it didn't belong. But yeah, it says it sent shivers through the North and the free African American community. Technically, no black was free of re enslavement. So you see, like, I was just noticing the difference in who they were labeling, like what was being labeled and how that was changing. Because you see them using all kind of different labels on us. Islam.
Yeah, what that is doing is trying to appeal to the division among our people.
Mm, Islam.
You know, so but the prophet's telling you already told us we're none of these.
Right.
The prophet's told us who we are. Is that but they still want to hold you in slavery. So they want to give you terms that deludes the slavery. They don't want you free. The prophet's trying to free you.
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta be taught how to attain freedom, what freedom is like. And that's what our job is. It says we're teaching our people. We're teaching our people, yes, you went through slavery. Allah uh, uh, permitted it, but here's what Allah permitted. And other things occurred. It was not permitted by Allah if you had changed your status, you had repented of your sins. It was our sinful ways that got us the condition we were in. Together, you got to repent of your sin. Your sin is of what is generated by your lower self. That's why the prophet tells you to study it. Fight that sinful part of you. Return back to your Father God, Allah. He's welcoming you back. So this is what this all about. So this is what we're teaching our people.
Mm-hmm.
And start with John the Baptist. Tell them it must be pure in heart first. Acts 7 said all Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure of love and their bodies clean with water. That's baptism. That's how you get baptized.
Islam.
Those preachers that dip you, it don't come close to what John teaching was at all.
Islam. Islam.
So these are the teachings we got to teach our people. It says, and we're teaching our people. Now, we got to have teachers to teach, and we don't have teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to say, my teacher one told me, and I didn't quite understand what he was saying because the meetings I was going to, it seemed like they were teaching, but your action determine whether you're actually teaching or not.
Uh-huh.
You saying one thing and doing another, and they told John that he couldn't point the way. He got to lead the way. They told John a block of wood can do that. That's what a lot of our brothers in these
Point the way.
temples are doing. They're a block of wood. They're pointing the way,
Islam. Islam.
not
Islam.
going the way.
Definitely.
So these are teaching. So my teacher said he was asked to go around all the temples, do an audit, report back in the condition. He said he came in, his report was there's not a teacher in the circuit. For all the temples, he said there was not a teacher teaching. There was none teaching our people. So the remedy to that, he said, we need a school to teach
Not a
those.
teacher.
Right. So that school is need that school now even greater than it was then. So the sincere brothers and sisters got to get together
Yes.
and they got to do that. They got to bury their head in this literature, study it, and share it with one they learn uh, from the gifts of Allah, which in chapter 26 it tells we got all of we know we told exactly how to come out of the condition we in. We were told how to bring
Islam.
about unity. It puts
Where you at, Brother John? Oh, hold on. You muted. Hold on 1 second. Brother John, unmute your mic. Brother John, unmute your mic.
how they get muted.
I don't know. It said muted your mic. I don't know, but
I
go
might have
ahead.
touched it accidentally.
All right.
I'm glad I was able to hear you to know
It was muted.
it
Islam.
was
Yes.
muted. Yeah.
All right. So you were saying, just to get you back where you were, um, where was that? Where were you at? You were talking about the decision played a role in propelling Abraham Lincoln, an outspoken anti-slavery voice, into the White House. The slavery issue had already been created, a turbulent, volatile atmosphere throughout the nation. Dred Scott, like kerosene tossed into a simmering fire, played a significant role in igniting the Civil War. The North became ready to combat what it viewed as the South's disproportionate influence in government.
Now let's talk about John Brown a little bit.
All right, John Brown.
Well, what occurred, that compromise they had was going to met one state as free and one as a slave. But there was opposition against that. So John Brown, his son, was out there trying to convert or try to explain to those who play a role in the territory being a state. And he wasn't making the success that he thought he should have made. He was getting older. So he wanted to use more direct action. he want to
Mm,
he want to pick up the gun.
yeah. All
the
right.
bullet, the ballot wasn't the ballot was too slow for him. What Malcolm said, the ballot of the bullet.
The ballad or the bully, yes.
Yeah, well, John Brown had been using the ballot. It wasn't getting the result he wanted, so he resort to the bullet.
Oh wow. All right. All right.
So John
Mm.
Brown
He
went to
sure
Frederick
did.
Douglass, huh?
He sure did. Go ahead. No, continue.
He went to Frederick Douglass because Frederick Douglass had a big mouth. So Frederick Douglass was, like I said in the Quran, the loud professor.
Mm. Frederick Douglass
He
was the law
professed.
professor. All
He
right.
loud talk. He
Uh-huh.
attracted a lot of people now.
Uh-huh.
So he was like honey tracking bees. So this uh, they arranged this meeting, John Brown with Frederick Douglass, and he told Frederick Douglass that he was getting old. He and his sons out there fighting, trying to prevent the spread of slavery, and that we
Uh-huh.
need to do more direct action. And said told Frederick Douglass, with that mouthpiece you got, you attract a lot of brothers. A lot of brothers listen to you and they believe you, and they ready to fight now. Frederick Douglass wasn't ready to fight, but he
All right.
attracted some young brothers that was ready to fight. So all he tipped he's telling John Brown telling Frederick Douglass, all you can do is just tell the brothers, give them the word and join with me.
Uh-huh.
And so they talked for hours, and there's a brother had escaped from the South because he had heard about what's going on in the North. So he come to join with them to come back with an army to free his people. So that's why he went and found Frederick Douglass. So in this meeting, at the end of the meeting, Frederick Douglass said that said, first of all, we ain't got no weapons.
Uh-oh. Uh-huh.
So John Brown said, well, I know where the weapons are. All we got to do is raid the arsenal where the weapon is and get the weapons. So, so Frederick Douglass had his apprehension about we got the weapon now. What the strategy? How can we have a winning strategy? John Brown says it's easy. He said, what we do, we strike at night those
Mm.
plantations. We retreat during the day back in the mountains, hide in the caves. So Frederick Douglass um, said, we go get the weapon. He said, we get weapon armory. And he says, well, how you gonna do it? He said, well, that's a steel trap. So Frederick Douglass didn't have the courage to make that commitment. So he went back to his platform of talking and told the young brother, said, come on, let's go. And the brother told him, no, I take my chance, the old man. So this young brother, he joined John Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And John Brown, with the few people he can get to help him on his mission, he had to he had to he had to accept the help of some sisters. The prophet said,
Oh.
but Allah said that the prophet said the sisters done enough when they give you a body to function in. They don't need to do no more. They did enough, but they're willing to do more. So Harry Tubman contacted her entourage, and they came.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wow. All right. The sisters
yeah.
came.
The sisters came.
The sisters came to
They
all
got there a little late. By the time they got there a little late, somebody probably had tipped off the federal government,
right.
and
Mm-hmm.
they trapped John Brown and his followers in the firehouse, something of that nature. But it was a failure. But it was a strategy that could have worked.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that Frederick Douglass didn't have the courage. He wasn't
Mm.
courageous. Harriet Tubman was. Harriet Tubman. He was called Moses.
Yeah.
There was some name that I believe Abraham Lincoln gave Harriet Tubman.
Harriet. Yeah, they
Wasn't
call her
Moses or
something.
something?
What is they call her? Harriet.
Yeah, so the sister stood up when that brother out here told the brother says the sister stood up. I don't blame
Mm-hmm.
what went down, y'all. Then wasn't successful. I don't blame the sisters. I
Yeah.
blame the brothers. So we brothers gotta be courageous. We gotta learn more about who we following. We following the prophet. There's no failure if you follow and do what he say. You
Islam.
gotta have belief and faith.
Mm-hmm. This and you're right. They called Harriet Tubman, often referred to as Moses. This nickname was
Moses,
given
yeah.
to her because, like the biblical figure Moses, who led the
Mm-hmm.
Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, Tubman led many enslaved people to freedom through the Underground Railroad. That's something
Okay.
else. You're right. The sisters showed up. The sisters. I
Yeah. So
always
if you
seem
ever
to be doing
if you ever
something.
get a chance to go into the Shenandoah Valley, they
Mm-hmm.
do tours around that Harper's Ferry where that battle took place where they defeated John Brown. John Brown was hanged because of this. He stuck his neck out for us.
He sure did. Yeah. It says that yes, he was hung December 2nd, 1859 in Charlestown, Virginia. Despite his controversial methods, Brown became a martyr for the abolitionist cause and heightened sectional tensions that eventually led to the American Civil War.
That's right.
Yeah, he was something else. He was something else, yeah. Came from a family involved in the abolitionist movement. So he was already a part of that anyway.
So
His
it's
dad was
important.
active in the Underground Railroad. Huh?
It's important for us to understand Act 6.
Islam. Islam.
It's important. The
So
prophet
when you
requires it. The
go
prophet
ahead.
requires for it to be read twice. That's just how important it is.
Islam.
So, being that
Islam.
important, I pay more attention to it. Eventually, it took me a long time to pay
Yeah.
attention to it.
Hmm.
The period of time between 1779 and 1865.
Mm-hmm. But it really started when? When did it actually like this whole thing start? Was it like 1774 that it really started, right? And then 1779 is when it came into what?
Yeah,
Fruition.
1774. Don't see what occurred is that The Europeans actually had to put a government together to take this land from us.
Mm. All right.
He had to accept his government, all right, and defeated our government. And it took him a period of time to do that. But while he was forming his government, the Allah played a hand in designing a government in conjunction with the answer to prayer that we have prayed for, let thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So in designing this government, the laws were such that once they live it, then it's going to be a perfect government. You live according to the way these laws are. It's like chapter 29.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 29 is held up for, I mean, what, 20 years? 1776, 19, over 20 years. In chapter 29, it says that you get together and you select one among you and set them a rule over yourself.
Mm-hmm.
They did thought that the first convention was a convention every 4 years. They have another convention and they do it. So they've been doing that for 20 years.
Hmm.
But that stood because the prophet told them what to write. They were not that level of intelligence to do that. They was told what to do. It
Hmm.
said he was in the room to tell them what to do. In some places, they'll tell you during those secret meetings, there was somebody in them meeting they didn't identify. So Allah is leading this divine movement. There's more uh, Holy Temple Science, more Scientific America is a national divine movement. National and divine.
Islam, national and divine movement.
Yeah, so first of all, you got to be sincere. The first degree is sincerity. You know, live all these degrees. So, but I sent a message to Sister Bay. I wanted to commend her on Friday that she did very, very well. But to me, she was following the blueprint. The blueprint is to study from the prophet's words and speak from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times we understand other words which cause you to drift, which is part of European psychology. Remember what the prophet said in the Moorish literature. He says the subsequent generation became slaves because they had been subjugated to European psychology. You have to understand
Mm-hmm.
about that psychology. It will enslave you. You got to come under that. That's why the prophet, when you come into the temple, he said, dump everything out you got in you.
Mm-hmm.
And after you hear what I have to say, then if you had some of that in there and you put in the trash, go in the trash and get it out. But most times we ain't much we can get out of that. It's a value.
So true. Hmm. Interesting. Islam.
Yeah, so
Islam.
what led me
So
to
how? What is? So when you say? Uh huh.
what led me to the uh the Dred Scott decision was Act 6, when it said we are teaching, when he talked about these two periods of time from 1779 to 1865.
Mm-hmm.
So I began to focus more on what was occurring during that period of time.
Okay.
And I kind of started 1865 because a lot of brothers and sisters were saying that Abraham Lincoln didn't do the will of Allah. Allah willed for us to be free. And they're saying Abraham Lincoln will was not to free us.
Right. That's what they
So that's
say.
why that's why I had to study it and found out that Abraham Lincoln did carry out the will of Allah. He did work before he became president of the United States of America. He had court cases that he defended. went to court and in conjunction helped the Moors because
Mm-hmm.
he was still connected. Abraham Lincoln was connected by his mother, which they say was a Melungeon.
Mm-hmm.
Melungeon is blood of Native American, African, and others. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them live around that area in the Tennessee area, Tennessee Mountain. And
Uh-huh.
that's what Brother Allah did part of his work as Brother Gillum.
Brother Gillum. Brother Gillum. Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brother Gillum. Yes, Islam.
And he
Mm.
lived as a black man there, because when he went to go into the city of the sun, they asked him, why was he coming there? His wisdom of the gods. He said that he wants to know what every man suffer.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, we suffer Negro black card slave. He want to know that. So he did.
Mm-hmm.
And the brothers and sisters didn't know that. He was teaching them Menard. They didn't know that about that. They didn't know about that work he did down there. He sent them down as a delegation. And when they witnessed that, they was elated when they went to Trenton, Tennessee and met his daughter. And people were saying, yes, he was here.
Mm-hmm.
He died and we buried him. So that meant that proof that he know what it is to be black because he lived as a black person, Negro from
Mm-hmm.
Ethiopia. And he said that's what he wanted to do when he went to the Desmond Crep in that school. They asked him, your wisdom of God, why you want to come and sit in our school? He said, anything any man suffer, he want to know about it. He want to substitute so he could feel it. He would know he can consult them, console them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Brother Allah has done. Brother Jesus, that is.
Islam. And so, Brother John, can you give the breakdown when you talk about Abraham Lincoln and how his name and what it means, and this is why it's important that we look like further into instead of this surface dwelling research that we do on things and dig deeper.
You remember what it says in Holy Quran about we have plenty of names for Allah. One of them is
Uh-huh.
Brahm, Brahm.
Yes, Islam.
All right, all right, Brahm, Abram, Abram, Brahm, and Ham his son. Old man Cush and his father Ham were the first inhabitants of Africa. So Ham means son. Abram means God, Allah, a son of Allah. It says in the Bible that Allah tested Abraham. Abraham passed the test, and he said that he favored him because he passed that test. He asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, and he was willing to do it. So he allowed him to use his name
Islam.
because of that. That's what they tell me. It's in the Bible. Now I'm not a Bible student, but I'm told that's what it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham was so faithful that the Almighty God, allowed him to use his name. They might not say in the Bible Allah, but they said the Supreme Court, Supreme God, Allah, or Supreme God, the creator of the universe, said that he could use his name, even though in the Bible it don't say his name was Allah. But Allah,
Islam.
that's one of his names.
Islam.
Bram, Par Bram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, so I believe that I believe the prophet when he says slavery lasts in 1865.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to understand what took place in 1865, who the players were.
Mm-hmm. And what is so you said that was just the one form of slavery we were free from, and there are other forms that we never act upon being free from those, or what took place as far as those other ones that we were not free from?
Well, the prophet's giving us an instruction how to do that. Remember, physical slavery was done through the government,
Mm-hmm.
but religious slavery, we have to do that ourselves to free ourselves from that religious slavery with the teaching of the prophet. Economic slavery, we have to free ourselves from that as well. National slavery, all those things that we have been given the remove the shackles of our mind to realize we're not black, we're not colored, we're not Ethiopian, we're son of Moses, our God, Allah.
Islam.
With
Islam.
those freedoms, we can do what we did in days of old. We saved civilization many times. We civilized many nations.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do that now that we've been free physically. It gives us freedom to go about seeking the instruction, teaching to free us from these other categories of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, European psychology is one of them.
European psychology is one of them.
European, yeah, the prophet tells us how that did enslave subsequent generations because they had been subjugated to European psychology. That's that Christianity that they told me about the first time I turned the temple. The first night I turned the temple, they read chapter 46 to
Chapter
me.
46. Islam. You want me to read
Hmm.
that for you, Brother John? Should I read it?
Yes, read it.
Read chapter 46. Islam. Chapter 46. We are supposed to always read this when someone comes in, a new person comes in.
A
Islam,
visitor. Whenever you
a
have a
visitor.
visitor visiting your meeting, read
Islam,
this chapter.
Islam.
Yes.
Read this chapter. Islam, the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet, chapter 46, the beginning of Christianity. The foundation of Christianity began in Rome. The Roman nations founded the first church of whom crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. Jesus himself was of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and Moabites and the inhabitants of Africa, seeking to redeem his people in those days from the oppressor of the pale skinned nations of Europe. Rome crucified him according to their law. Then Europe had peace for a long time until Mohammed I came upon the scene and fulfilled the works of Jesus of Nazareth. The holy teachings of Jesus was to the common people to redeem them from under the great pressure of the hands of the unjust, that the rulers and the rich would not oppress the poor. Also, that the lion and the lamb may lay down together, and neither would be harmed when morning came. These teachings were not accepted by the rulers, neither by the rich, because they loved the principles of the Ten Commandments. Through the Ten Commandments, the rulers and the rich live, while the poor suffer and die. The lamb is the poor people. The lion is the rulers and the rich. And through love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, all men are one and equal to seek their own destiny and to worship under their own vine and fig tree, after the principles of the holy and divine laws of their forefathers. All nations of the earth in these modern days are seeking peace. But there is but one true and divine way that peace may be obtained in these days, and it is through love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, being taught universally to all nations in all lands. Islam.
Islam.
Still there, Brother John?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
I'm just going to make one comment, and I guess at some point we're going to close up. What time you want to close this out?
Whenever you're ready, Brother John, whenever you're ready. We could come
Is it
back for a part two because I know this was a good one and it's still so much more to cover.
exactly? So, is anyone on that have questions?
Anyone have any
Statements?
questions on TikTok? Anyone have any questions here on Facebook or YouTube? any questions, you can place them in the chat and we could get them answered for you. If not, you can always email me, inbox me, and I can send them over to Brother John. And when we come back again for this part 3 on this, I call it the mental slavery series, we can answer some of those questions if you guys have questions. But if you want to put them in the chat for the next 5 minutes, we'll take some questions. And if we don't have no questions, we'll close the meeting down. Let me see.
I want to say that the prophet told us about the time when the truth was going to be put out here in the media like it is now. My teacher told me that I need to get to the point where I can separate the roses from the thorns. So there's a mixture of information out here. There's truth and falsehood, and is mixed. Falsehood has a sound, and so does truth. A ring. So you have to listen how it rings to you. And to have a reference for truth, I use the Quran as a reference. When something is said and it sounds similar to what the prophets say, then I begin to pay more attention to it. But when it don't, I kind of shove it aside. Maybe examine it later on. But there's a mixture of information out here, and it does. But you need a reference. You need a guide. You need, when you go out and meditate, you need a guide. You need a guardian angel to guide you when you're out there in space, so you can get back. Because if you don't have a guide, you can get lost. So you need what they said about a ship without a rotor. I'm trying to think how that is tied in what I'm saying. But the point is that you can get lost. My guide is this Holy Quran. If it make reference and it makes sense from the Holy Quran what's being said, I pay attention to it. But if it don't, I don't. So a lot of things that are being said and done, it doesn't ring right with me. Now I might shove it aside and may not shove it out altogether. I may come back at some point in time and re-examine it. And it may make more sense then. But that's because our understanding is opening by degrees. And what open your understanding for me is reading this Quran, which means I have to read it on a regular basis. For me. And I feel it'll do the same thing for everyone else as well.
Wow.
So you need a guide. If you're not having a guide, you may get lost out there.
Definitely.
Now, if you are meditating, you got your body and get lost and can't get back. And if you don't have a guide, you can be guided back by a loved one. One come upon you, you unconscious. I use that term. You unconscious.
You there, Brother John? Oh, I think we lost him. Or lost the sound. It's not muted. You're not muted. Your mic is unmuted. You're still there. I'm not sure what happened. Is it froze? That was getting good. If we don't get to hear him come back, y'all, we're coming back again for this. But I'm gonna leave y'all with some things, some notes that are here. and can kind of give you guys some things to think about. Um, I'll start up here. We went over just so y'all can kind of remember what it is we went over because we did lose them. We lost them. We lost them. We lost him. Okay. What we can learn from the Dred Scott decision today. Constitutional interpretation. The case highlights how the interpretation of the Constitution can have profound and lasting impacts on society. Chief Justice Roger B. Taney, so we said it was the Taney court back then, now it's the Roberts court, ruling that African Americans were not citizens and had no rights to sue in federal court, was controversial. Now, in the original document, it says black, it doesn't say African American. Had no rights to sue in federal court was a controversial interpretation that fueled further division in the country. Impact of the Supreme Court decision. The Dred Scott decision underscores the power of the Supreme Court to influence social and political issues. It showed how a single court ruling could exasperate existing tensions and contribute to significant historical events such as the Civil War. Civil rights and equality. The case serves as a reminder of the long struggle for civil rights and the equality in the United States. Dred Scott's fight for freedom and the subsequent ruling highlighted the systemic racism and legal barriers that African Americans faced. Public reaction and political mobilization. The decision also demonstrates how public opinion and political mobilization can shape the course of history. The ruling galvanized both pro slavery and anti slavery forces, leading to increased activism and eventually the Civil War. Islam, Brother John, did you want to give some words before we close the meeting? I'm just giving them going over what we discussed through out this live, just giving them something that they can take with them so when you come back, they'll have questions.
Yeah, well, I was saying something, and then got disconnected.
Yes.
So I just got back in. So I don't know what was lost when
Uh,
I.
you stopped at you were gonna say excuse me. You were gonna say something, then it went away.
The next time we have a meeting, I may share some of what is in the biography of the Moors,
All
because
right.
there's information biography of Moors not in other books. You know, yeah, the biography of Moors. We might talk a little bit about that.
Huh. All right. So what do you think about next Saturday? Do you think you'll be available if we were to do this on next Saturday? Because I know you have Holy Day meeting and Sunday school.
Yes, next Saturday. What day? Next Saturday, I gotta go to Tennessee.
You do?
And
Oh, all right. That might not work then. We
wait a
might
minute, wait a
not.
minute. When is next Saturday? What day it is?
I think that's the 11th. And I actually do have a baby shower. You're right. I have a baby shower next Saturday.
Oh, all right.
5
So we'll
July.
skip next Saturday then.
All right. So you want to do the Saturday after that?
Yeah, the 18th. Yeah.
We can do the 18th. So you guys are going to come back on the 18th. Brother John's going to bring us some more amazing history facts, things that we can study and definitely have receipts on so that we can better start understanding ourselves, better knowing ourselves because these things are important, especially right now with everything that's going on. More important than ever, your spiritual connection back to Allah has to be, I mean, really, you need it. Islam. So, Brother John, would you like to say anything else before?
Yeah. What I like for everyone to do is kind of go back in the mind of that period of time and re-examine some of the publications, some of the books that make reference to that period of time, because to some degree, I think we're reliving it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially the Supreme Court. thought that it would be a fair court, and that you can kind of um, uh, feel more comfortable that you living in a just government that would do right about you. And we thought we had challenged that and made certain changes and advances. But
Mm-hmm.
I think we get a better understanding of the struggle, and we might be more inclined to defend what has been gained so far and fight the rolling back of it. So I think we need to be more conscious of the things that occurred, the role that somehow people have played in. Sometimes maybe we're on the sideline, maybe may not want to be on the sideline anymore. So yeah, I think there's a benefit in looking at that back at that area, in my opinion.
Islam. So going back into the area, going back and studying this time period of the Dred Scott, the War of 1812, many things that I mentioned to you that we can all go back and just take a look at and study and research more on, because it's very important for today and what's going on, so that we can get back in our proper status mentally. Number one, is like I said, this mental slavery something. This is a work on the mind that just has to totally be unknotted, untied, undone, unfolded. So it's long.
Oh, Sister Tay,
Yes.
is any of this recorded?
Yes, it is, and I'll send it to you. I just
All right,
need
I
you to,
appreciate it.
yes, I will send it to you as soon as it's done recording. I'll send it straight over to you, Brother John.
All right, then I appreciate it.
Islam. Peace and love. Have a great evening, Brother John. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm glad I'm able to contribute at some point, some degree of enlighten our people. Just it's been given back. I've been enlightened over the years, and it's a matter of sharing what I've benefit, return the
Islam.
benefit received.
Islam. We sure appreciate you.
All
Always
right
my
then.
teacher. Always an honor to have him around. So we look forward to seeing you next Saturday at 7:30.
That's Saturday the
I
18th.
mean 18th. The 18th at 7:30. Islam.
All right then.
All
Peace,
right.
sister.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
All right, you guys. So I'll finish going back over what it is so that you can go back to this time period and study on it, get some research, from it. So when you come back on the 18th, you'll have questions, and some questions could be answered for you. So, as we were talking, the civil rights and the equality, the case serves as a reminder of the long struggle for civil rights and equality in the United States. Dred Scott's fight for freedom and the subsequent ruling highlighted the systemic racism and legal barriers that African Americans face. Public reaction and political mobilization. The decision also demonstrates how public opinion and political mobilization can shape the course of history. The ruling galvanized both pro slavery and anti slavery forces, leading to increased activism and eventually the Civil War. Legal and moral responsibility. Finally, the Dred Scott decision reminds us of the legal and moral responsibility to ensure justice and equality for all individuals. It serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of legal decisions that deny basic human rights. By studying the Dred Scott decision, we can better understand the complexities of constitutional law, the impact of judicial rulings, and the ongoing struggle for civil rights and equality. What are your thoughts on the lessons that we can learn from this case? So think about your thoughts about that case. Then we talked about the War of 1812, which was a conflict fought between the United States and Great Britain. There were trade restrictions. There was which trade restrictions against the United States during the war in France angered the American merchants. Impressment, the Royal Navy practice of impressing American sailors into British service, was a major point of contention. Territorial expansions, that's what they wanted. The United States sought to expand its territory, particularly into areas controlled by Native American tribes allied with the British. Major events: burning of Washington, D.C. in August of 1814. British forces captured and burned Washington, D.C. Battle of New Orleans in January 1815. We just had something happen in New Orleans, right? Just a few days ago. American forces under General Andrew Jackson defeated the British in the Battle of New Orleans. 3. The Treaty of Ghent. The war officially ended with the signing of the Treaty of Ghent on December 24th of 1814, which was ratified by the U.S. Congress on February 17th, 1815. The impact was national pride. The war fostered a sense of national pride and unity in the United States. Military leaders. It produced a new generation of American military leaders, including Andrew Jackson, who later became president. Native American relations. The war weakened Native American resistance to American expansion. We talked about property laws. Property laws govern the ownership, use, and transfer of property. They are designed to protect the rights of property owners and ensure orderly transactions and disputes. Here's a brief overview. Real property includes land and anything attached to it, such as buildings or trees. Then you got personal property. Of course, anything you can move around, furniture, cars, and jewelry. Intellectual property protects the creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary works, and trademarks. That's the main one of the property laws that you was taken under. Your intellectual property was snatched from you. Key concepts: ownership, the legal right to possess and use property; transfer of property, the process by which ownership is transferred from one party to another, such as though sale, gift, or inheritance, which that's what they thought when his first slave holder went up out of here. I guess the other one thought that he could just be transferred. More or less, that's what they were doing. Easements, the right to use someone else's land for a specific purpose, such as a right of way. So those are different property laws. They've taken the property of your mind, and a lot of times even transferring your intellectual property to somebody else. Property rights: possession, the right to control and use the property; exclusion, the right to prevent others from using the property; disposition, the right to transfer the property to someone else. Remember, we were property, y'all. We were property. So we fell up under property laws. Person, place, or thing, even with being movable property, and all of those things we can fall into. The zoning laws, regulations that control how property can be used in certain areas. Environmental laws, protect natural resources and regulate how property can be developed. Landlord-tenant laws, governs the relationship between property owners and renters. So in 1856, it was filled with significant events and developments around the world. Here are a few notable ones. Major events: Dred Scott decision on March 6th of 1857. Now remember, slavery was over in 1865. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in the Dred Scott versus Sanford case that African Americans were not citizens and had no rights to sue in federal court. This decision further deepened the divide leading up to the American Civil War. There was an Indian Rebellion of 1857, also known as the Sepoy Mutiny. This was a major uprising against British rule in India, sparked by grievances of Indian soldiers in the British East Indian Company's army. So we're talking India. We're not talking India here, Indians. We're talking India over there, right? So this was going on 1857. Panic of 1857, a financial crisis in the United States that led to a severe economic depression. It was triggered by the failure of the Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company. Remember what life insurance and stuff was about back then, insurance, period. The University of Calcutta, founded on January 24th, 1857. It was first full-fledged university in South Asia. Then the Second Opium War took place. France and the United Kingdom declared war on China on March 3rd of 1857, leading to further conflicts and the eventual opening of China to Western trade. So those are events that were taking place around the time that the Dred Scott decision was going down. These are other things that are taking place even around the world. There were other events like an earthquake, Fort Tejon, the earthquake, a powerful earthquake that struck Central and Southern California on January the 9th, 1857, with a magnitude of 7.9. The Gallaudet University, established on February 3rd of 1857 in Washington, D.C., became the first school for the advanced education of the deaf. So just these dates and times, just remember all this stuff is going around all these times and these dates. Because things be happening on these same dates a lot of times. These events highlight the global and domestic changes occurring during that time. Let's see. Then we talked about the World Court. Talked about the World Court, which is an international court of justice, also known as the World Court. It was established, it says, in June of 1945 by the Charter of the United Nations and began its work in April of 1946. Location and structure: the seat, the Hajj, the Netherlands. Judges: the court consists of 15 judges. Mighty funny because even with our prophet Noble Drew Ali, in the time of our prophet in chapter 29, this is how I know it's just, this is so beautiful how you could just go back, you could refer to this Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and you can find these oh, it's just so beautiful to find these things in. 29, that's 27, 28, 29. So right here it says that the court consists of 15 judges elected by the United Nations. Back then in the 1920s, 1928, whatever, before the prophet passed, there were 15 states the prophet set up temples in. So he was, I mean, just so good to see these things because there were 15 states that the prophet had set up temples in back then in the 1920s. So it's beautiful to kind of see even the structure of how he was making our movement be, even based off of the way these judges and stuff sit in this world court. It's elected by the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council for 9-year terms. The languages, the official working languages are English and French. I love that because this is going to take me back to some things that I had studied earlier in the year about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, really about the way things were set up in the beginning. It was and I'm going to have to go back and bring it all up because it's something that happened back in Newark, New Jersey before it became Newark, New Jersey. It was something else before then. But I'll go back and pull those things up too to bring those into our build. The functions were settling legal disputes. The ICJ settles legal disputes submitted to it by states in accordance with international law. So they're going on international law, not just your basic law where you're at, your county law, but international law. The advisory opinions. The court gives advisory opinions on legal questions referred to it by authorized UN organs and specialized agencies. There's notable cases. The advisory proceedings provides advisory opinions on various international and legal issues such as the obligations of Israel in relation to the presence and activities of the United Nations in the occupied Palestinian territory. Interesting. He did mention that. Contentious cases. The court has entertained numerous cases between states addressing issues ranging from territorial disputes to violations of international treaties. So those treaties that everyone wants to talk about has to go before the World Court. It's not going to do you any good to keep thinking that you're going to fight it within this jurisdiction. You got to take it to the highest court there is, because that's where the Dred Scott decision wasn't taken to a high enough court for that decision to be made. Then we talked about the Taney Court, right? Which is the Taney Court. We know that's the court that was back then, and it consisted of those judges, and they were all pro-slavery. They were all pro-slavery judges. Now we have the Roberts Court, refers to because we know Chief Justice John Roberts is, so that's why it's called the Roberts Court. And here are the key points. Chief John Roberts, appointed by President Bush. Composition: initial justice. the Roberts Court initially included the remaining 8 associate justices from the requisite court: John Paul Stevens, Sandra Day O'Connor, Antonin Scala, Anthony Kennedy, David Socher, Clarence Thomas, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Stephen Breyer. Changes over time. The court has seen several changes in its composition, including the appointments of Samuel Alito, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kager, Neil Widet, I can't even pronounce it, Amy Conley Barrett. The Roberts Court is considered to be the most conservative court since the Vinson Court of 1946 to 1953. This shift is attributed to the retirement of the modern justice Sandra Day O'Connor and the confirmation of more conservative justices. The ideological balance shifted further to the right with the replacement of swing vote Anthony Kennedy by Brett Kavanaugh in 2018, and the replacement of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which we know she passed, by Amy Coney Barrett in 2020. Okay. The Roberts Court has played a significant role in shaping U.S. constitutional law and has had a lasting impact on various aspects of American society. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Reconstruction period after Abraham Lincoln. So that'll be something we'll talk about the next build on the 18th. So I'm sure he'll bring that up about the Reconstruction, which followed the American Civil War from 1865 to 1877, was a transformative era in U.S. history. Here are some key aspects. To reintegrate the South. The primary goal was to reintegrate the South states that had seceded back into the Union. Abolish slavery. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, abolished slavery in the United States. Civil rights for freedom. The 14th and 15th Amendments, ratified in 1868 and 1870, respectively, granted citizenship and voting rights to African American men. It says African American men. Presidential Reconstruction. Abraham Lincoln introduced the 10% plan, which allows Southern states to rejoin the Union of 10% of their voters sworn an oath of allegiance. Andrew Johnson succeeded Lincoln and continued a lenient approach to Reconstruction, leading to conflicts with radical Republicans in Congress. Challenges and outcomes. There was resistance, economic and social changes, and the end of the Reconstruction. The Compromise of 1877 marked the end of Reconstruction as federal troops were withdrawn from the South and Southern states began to impose Jim Crow laws. Then we talked about John Brown. John Brown was a militant American abolitionist who believed in using force to end slavery in the United States. He was born May 9th of 1800 in Torrington, Connecticut. Brown came from a family that was involved in the abolitionist movement. His father, Owen Brown, was active in the Underground Railroad. Abolitionist activities. Bleeding Kansas. Brown gained national attention for his involvement in the violent conflicts in Kansas between pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers, known as Bleeding Kansas. Potawatomi Massacre. In May of 1856, Brown and his followers unalived 5 pro-slavery settlers in what became known as the Potawatomi Massacre. There was a raid in Harper's Ferry raid in October of 1859. Brown led a raid on the Federal Armory at the Harper's Ferry, Virginia, now West Virginia, with the aim of starting a slave rebellion. He hoped to arm enslaved people and spark a widespread uprising. The outcome, the raid was unsuccessful and Brown was captured by U.S. Marines led by Colonel Robert E. Lee. He was tried for treason, murder, and inciting insurrection. Execution and legacy. Executed. Brown was hanged on December 2nd of 1859 in Charlestown, Virginia, now West Virginia. His legacy. Despite his controversial methods, Brown became a martyr for the abolitionist cause and heightened sectional tensions that eventually led to the American Civil War. Harriet Tubman, we talked about her too, an American abolitionist and social activist. As he said, nobody around, but guess who showed up? The sisters. Guess who showed up? The sister, the sister. And they call her Black Moses. They called her Moses of that time, excuse me. She was born Armanita Ross around March of 1822 and was an American abolitionist and social activist. She is best known for her role as a conductor on the Underground Railroad, where she helped guide enslaved people to freedom. Here, we already know, well, most people do know, I would hope, was born into slavery in Dorchester County, Maryland. At the age of 12, she suffered a severe head injury when an overseer threw a heavy metal weight, which caused her lifelong health issues, including seizures and vivid dreams. But she was still able to take people, to get people to freedom. Escaped to freedom in 1849. She escaped to Philadelphia and later returned to Maryland to rescue her family and others. She could have saved many more if they just knew they weren't slaves. She made approximately 13 missions to rescue around 70 enslaved people, earning the nickname Moses for her efforts. She wasn't scared. She wasn't scared. See, Brown, he was hoping his homeboys and they weren't gonna be scared, but they were scared. Obviously, we say, what's the man's name? The loud professor of the time, Frederick Douglass. He wasn't ready for it. He just want to be the loud professor. He ain't stand, but just pointing the way, like the wood not going that way though. But this one, brother Jim Brown, he was ready. He was ready. And so look who came to his aid, but Harriet Tubman, Moses of the time. She led a raid that liberated more than 700 enslaved people. Well, during the Civil War, Tubman served as an armed scout and spy for the Union Army. She led a raid that liberated more than 700 enslaved people, making her the first woman to lead an armed military operation in the United States. Later years and legacy, women's suffrage. Tubman was also active in the women's suffrage movement. She passed away on March 10th of 1913, and it is remembered as one of the most influential figures in American history. Yes, she is. She was Moses, just for that, for helping Moses, who led Moses, who led the Israelites out of slavery of Egypt. Tubman led many enslaved people to freedom through the United Underground Railroad. So that's what we talked about today. We're going to build more on these other forms of slavery that we're still a part of. Religious slavery, we're still caught up into. Religious slavery refers to the historical and sometimes contemporary practices of using religious justifications to support or oppose slavery. You got Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Judaism, Hebrew slaves were given certain protections and could be freed. They were considered part of the extended family and could own material goods. Christianity, early Christian authors maintained the spiritual equality of slaves and free persons while accepting slavery as an institution. Some Christian slaveholders use biblical passages to justify slavery, such as the curse of Ham and Paul's epistle to the Ephesians. Islam, early Islamic texts encourage kindness towards slaves and manumission, freeing slaves. Right, recognizing slavery as an institution, slavery was permitted for non-Muslims imprisoned or bought beyond the borders of Islamic rule. So all of this, the religious slavery, our national, we're under a national slavery still. I feel it's still there. because we're still treated as property. Most people are still forced to work under brutal conditions. You know what I'm saying? Still, like we're still going through these things. So even though we were freed from one form, which was the chains broken, it's still the mental, the religious. Talked about it yesterday. The mental, the religious, the national slavery, and it was a few more that we spoke on yesterday too. What was it? The financial bondage of slavery. It was a few other ones that we spoke on. So this is what we'll cover come the 18th. We're going to cover more on these subjects of these things that we talked about. But where is it? Let me tell you what those 5 different forms that it gave of slavery. Because this one says national slavery, religious slavery. Well, there's a forced labor, of course. There's debt bondage. That's a slavery. Human trafficking, child slavery, domestic servitude. So those fall up under all of those. Pretty much any of those can fall up under these talking points. So the different forms of slavery we're still under that we still need to free ourselves from. Because as he said, one form could be freed through the paper. But how do you free yourself from all of this other stuff? Which mainly, most of this is in the mind. Most of these other things are mental. So saving ourselves and freeing ourselves of mental slavery is the best thing for us. So come back on the 18th. That's not next Saturday because that's the 11th, but the Saturday after, which is the 18th. And we'll do it at 7 o'clock. And I will put up an event page so that you can be reminded of that date. Come back with your questions, comments, even a demonstration if you need to. And we'll go from there. But just remember, religious slavery is a complex and multifaceted topic reflecting the diverse ways in which different faiths have interacted with the institution of slavery throughout history. Okay? So please understand, every nation has experienced slavery in one way or another. We did get it the worst, but every nation has experienced it. But now every nation is seeking peace. And there's only one way to obtain peace, and that is through the 5 principles that the Moorish American Muslims stand on, and that's love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, being taught universally to all nations in all lands. So please remember that, and I look forward to seeing y'all on the 18th for the next build with Brother John on the Dred Scott decision. Peace and love.